Hey friend, this is the podcast you've been expecting, a dating toolbox to guide you through dating and relationships.
We are your hosts, the handsome mutant and the crazy Venezuelan girl. Stay tuned to laugh as we share our own experiences.
All right, everybody, with us today we have our friend Brandon Moreno. Say hi, Brandon.
Hi, everybody.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Brandon Moreno. I'm 22 years old. I happen to, at this current time, be single, but definitely looking. So if any of you like the sound of my voice, just let me know.
We're probably going to make you the cover of this episode so that all 50 listeners can check you out and see if they want to take you out or not.
That's fine by me. I feel like I'm looking actually pretty good today.
All right. I mean, after this episode, everybody should know what to do. So just like we said in the introduction, in this episode, we're talking about first dates. And Allie, you kind of have a nice checklist of things that you should probably do and think about before you start on your first dates. Tell us a little bit about that.
We are going to be talking about how to actually do that checklist and start dating. So
I'd kind of like to mention for a minute, if that's okay, and maybe we, kind of go back to other subjects that happened before this, but on my first dates, I used to be like really indecisive on, how I felt it was going or how interested I felt I was in the person I was on a date with. And then I don't even remember where I heard this. It was totally random, but it was a godsend for sure. I was just watching this video and somebody was talking about how, it was a girl that was talking about how like within the first 10 or 15 minutes of the date, she was aware of whether or not she actually wanted a second date. And I think part of it is that like instant connectivity you can have with the person just in conversation, so like me personally, I definitely know within the first 10 minutes now whether I want a second date or not. Now that definitely doesn't mean that my mind can't change or that I'm not going to go on a second date. Sometimes it's good to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Because some people are really shy at first or have a hard time.
Or they might be out of their element or whatever, having a bad day.
Yeah. And that's where I think it's okay to definitely know what you want and it's okay to decide that, but it doesn't mean you have to have a bad date and it doesn't mean that things are concrete. But me personally, that's kind of how I go on my first dates, at least at the beginning.
I think what you said is super important about making sure that you have a good first date, even if you're not connecting with the person. Because I think a lot of people get scared about going on first dates because they're like, man, this is not going to be fun. I'm going to be like bored the whole time. I don't know like what to say, that kind of stuff. I say just like throw all of that out. Like you don't need to worry about what you're going to say or if the person is going to like you or not, because you can't control whether that person is going to like you or not. The best way to have a good date and by extension also have a better chance of seeing that person again and making something happen is just making sure that you are having fun personally. And I think that goes with making sure that you're comfortable and confident, make sure that you look the way that you want, make sure that you have dressed the way that you wanted to, and that you're doing something that you want to do. It's going to be really hard to have a bad date doing something you love because you're already going to have fun doing that thing that you love. And that person is going to see that you're in your more natural state. I think that's really important.
First dates are just so scary, especially when you don't know the person. And even when you do know the person you're going on a first date with, you still feel like you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to mess up that relationship you already had with that person or not. And if you don't know the person, then that's even more scary. Honestly, I can talk for hours about crazy first dates and awkward first dates and best first dates, but first dates are just exciting and they're a great opportunity to, like you guys said, know if that might be something that can happen, if that person might be a potential partner or not. Just don't go into the first date thinking, I'm going to have to date this person. That's not how you should go into first dates, because there's just an opportunity to get to know them. If you already know them, then talk about things that might be common, the interests that you like.
Well, what do you guys think about the importance of the first date? Because I think some people see the first date as maybe the most important date, and some people I think are really casual about it. Do you think that we make it more important than it needs to be?
I don't really know if it's like the most important thing, but I definitely think for me, like it's a crucial factor in understanding whether we can connect. I don't know. I'm kind of hesitant to say the word emotionally, but maybe more intellectually.
Okay.
What do you think, Allie?
I was just thinking about this before we started the podcast. I am taking a communication class, and in our communication class, we talked about how our first impression is the most lasting impression we have about the person. My professor was saying she put her husband on the friend zone the first time she met him, and he stayed there for 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
And it's because, yeah, it's crazy, huh?
And he dug himself out of that hole?
He did.
Man, what a champ. Like 10-year friend zone? Wow.
That's the master of the friends.
Right?
Everybody take notes.
But she was saying that first impressions are so important. So first dates should be important because they have a lasting and profound memory on you. When I think about most of the relationships I had before, first thing I think of is the first date. And even when I think about Lane, the first thought that comes to my mind is him getting, the garage door and just seeing him there and just like our first experience together. So it should be something that you treasure, a memory that you treasure, if and you end up marrying that person.
Yeah, like we did.
Yeah. So
I'm probably going to make a reference to that every episode because I'm proud of the fact that I married you. So,
Oh, babe, thanks.
We're all proud of you. For being honest.
Thanks.
We're all pretty proud of you.
Thanks, Brandon. I'll accept that award.
Thanks, guys. But yeah, to me, first dates are pretty important. They're not the most important fact of a relationship. Sometimes first dates are super awkward. You don't know what to do. And if you give that person a second chance, a second date, you might end up liking that person a lot. The first date was just maybe, like you guys said, a day that they were not doing well, a date that they might be like me, not really good at flirting and first dates.
No, like, I just want to add something real quick to what you said. I think that the reason why our first date went so well, I don't want to brag or anything, but I think the reason why our first date went so well is because I went into the date trying to treat you like a friend, like we were already friends and that we knew each other, rather than trying to super impress you, trying to be someone that I wasn't. I was like, I'm going to go into this date, I'm just going to be her friend and then see where it goes. On your first date, go into it trying to genuinely become friends with the person.
No, and I definitely agree with you. I think one thing that you said at the very beginning there was really important. You went into that date not trying to impress Allie necessarily, right? I mean, there's this huge stigma, I think, in dating, that on your first date you do have to make that lasting impression, right? If it never goes anywhere, at the very least they're gonna think you're some suave intellectual person, super fun. That's what's most connected, is because when you're not trying to just be extremely impressive for whoever you're with, you're just more natural in what you say and what you do and how you're acting, and that certainly shines through. I mean, if you're not being normal, then the person that you're with is not going to be able to,
and they'll pick up on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the best first impression you can make is a genuine impression. If you can be yourself, that's the most lasting and best impression that someone's going to get.
Yep, you are not on that first date to make sure that they know you're the coolest or the best or
the richest.
Or the richest, yeah. You're not there to test that you are impressive and that you're brilliant. You are on that first date to make that first connection with them. Those are powerful words. This is an advice that I give you from my heart. Don't make first dates a huge, expensive, fancy thing. Unless the girl or the boy is that way, But most people want a very low-key first date. Something that you guys both like doing, but maybe just going to a park, maybe just doing something casual. From a girl's perspective, and other girls might be different than I am, but I did not like when dates were super expensive, and I felt like I needed to be that way. I felt like I needed to match that energy, or I feel like I'm embarrassed, or
I think if it was, I don't know if this is what you're trying to say, but if it was me and a guy was being super, super expensive, or even a girl, I would feel like I'd be under more pressure to make it even better and to meet their expectations for the date. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I did not want guys to spend a lot of money on the date if I knew I was not going to have a second date with him. Because, I mean, I feel like I was wasting his time and his money.
And his money, yeah.
And so just make your first date low key. Find something that is cheap, fun, that you're not going to regret that you spend your time and your money on that. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, and you don't have to regret that first date.
Exactly.
Definitely. Well, and I think one of the weird things, and I don't know how much of a stigma it is here in Utah, but I've definitely had it happen to me by girls that have asked me on dates. For whatever reason, when people spend a lot of money on dates, I feel like they expect the person that they're with to put out on the first date.
Yeah,
Thanks
right?
for putting it delicately,
like-
Brandon. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it right at you guys. You know, the truth is, like, I've been on those dates, and it actually, for whatever reason, like, if I don't want to do something with somebody, I'm the kind of person who's upfront about it, you know, in any regard. But it definitely makes me feel really uncomfortable when a girl has gone like that extra mile for me, and I feel like she's done so much for me that night, and then all of a sudden it gets to that moment, and I gotta be the guy who's like, wait, after everything, like, stop, no, it's not, and it's a little uncomfortable, and I can especially imagine that, you know, that for girls where it's more like, you know, you're not maybe necessarily used to that kind of treatment. You know, it could be a really scary situation to be put in. So that's where I think, like Ali said, a low-key date is honestly the best way to go. And if you're looking for a second date, if you're looking to take that person out because you want to make something happen, or you're hoping something can happen, that's like, that is your path right there.
I'm going to share an experience I had. This awesome, cool guy invited me to go to a place, a very expensive restaurant. At first, I was kind of hesitant. I didn't want to go out with this guy, but I was trying not to be rude and, you know, make up my mind about him before even going out with him. And so I accepted to go on a date with him, and I know that day was probably more than $300.
Oh my goodness, man.
And yeah, and after the date,
Thanks, random bro, whoever you were, for taking care of
after that date, I felt so bad, saying, you know, I'm so sorry, like, and I didn't say it right after the date, but he asked me out again, and I said, you know what, like, I'm so sorry, I'm not interested in going out anymore. And I cannot imagine how he felt, but I felt terrible because I did not want to waste his time and money. So I think that boys out there, just don't spend too much money on trying to feel like you have to impress that girl. A girl should not be looking after you for your money. So if you plan something cheap, low key, that's perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely have an outline for my first dates that I like, but that's not everybody.
Share with us.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Please.
spill the secrets, Brandon. Like, what's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce. All right. So for me, I think, I mean, the kind of first date I like to go on is I love to go out for food, whether it's for dinner or just like a dessert, you know, because then we can sit down and we can actually talk for a minute. You know, I can have fun with anybody. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm a personable guy, and I can
He
make
is.
a good time. Thank you.
Just for the girls out there looking for a personable guy.
I was gonna say, I feel like he's gonna take over the podcast.
My
Like, he's so
goodness.
good at this that it's just gonna be his podcast now. Like,
No worry, you guys. I'm not into that. You know, that's just for me. I like that because then I can tell if we can talk for a while, if we can have like an emotionally and intellectually connective experience, then I know that I want a second date because, like I said, I can go have fun with anybody. I don't want my relationship to be based on the fact that with a pretty girl I had a really fun time. You know, that's any Friday night or Saturday night. You know, that's nothing special. But if I can actually connect with somebody on a higher level, that means something. That can go somewhere.
yeah. I think just something that you mentioned though, I really like what you said that, you know, after the main thing that you had planned, sometimes you go and do something else, something simple just to like make the date longer. I did that with Ali a couple of times too, where like after a date, I was like, you know, I don't really want the date to end. Like, let's go for a drive or like, let's get ice cream or something. But one thing I want to point out as well is that there's no time limit either to a date. And I think that it's better to leave somebody wanting more. Like if the date is going well, it's better to like I don't want to say like cut it short, but it's better to not push it, you know what I mean? Because if you're like, man, this date is going so well, like let's do a couple more things. If those couple more things turn into more and more and more things, and then like 4 hours later you're like, all right, like now we're bored, now we're tired of each other, like that's not a good place to be, you know? So I think it's, even if your first date only lasts like an hour or two and you had a good connection, you had a fun time, you made a good impression, just like end it and leave them wanting more.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. One of my cousins, I love this girl so much. Her first date with her, unfortunately now ex-husband, it was a 36-hour date.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my.
Yeah, like
that's the kind of stuff you look like you see in movies.
yeah, like it was. I don't remember exactly what they did, but it was like they went for dinner and then they stayed up all night together. They went on like a hike and watched the sunrise. And then they got breakfast and did a few more things, got lunch, did a few more things, got dinner, and then stayed up all night together again. And I was like,
how, man? Wow.
Maybe that sounds great if like you all of a sudden just fell in love with a person.
Yeah.
But I don't personally, I don't believe in that. Like I think it's definitely a process. If it's that easy for you, either you guys are literally soulmates and like predetermined that you guys are going to be together.
Yeah.
Or like maybe you're just kind of getting swept up in a moment, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely, like you said, Lane, I 100% agree with that.
I think that's such a great comment. I personally did not like dates that went super long, and it got to a point where I was out of words and the conversation was not, flowing because I had nothing else to say.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty talkative girl, and sometimes
If she runs out of something to say, there's something wrong. Like,
babe. No, and it's so important that you know the limit. You want to make sure the other person knows you're interested in them, but not being overbearing.
Mm-hmm. I think that slides into another topic about, I guess, demonstrating to who you're with whether or not you are interested in them and want to see them again. Because I think on a first date, people establish by like their physical and verbal movements and cues, like whether or not they are interested in seeing you again. So like, Ali, what do you do to make a guy feel like you want to see him again?
You guys, I have become an expert on this. I'm kidding. I am so kidding. I was the type of person who did not know how to flirt at all. Mm-hmm. I would never pull a move. And one of my worst experiences, and I learned from it, I was super interested in this guy. And we went on a couple dates, and I never showed him. I feel like I never showed him that I was interested in him. Mm-hmm. I never, touch him or say something like, oh, like you look so nice today, or I never complimented him, or never try to demonstrate him that I liked him. And so I am such an advocate for learning how to flirt. You can demonstrate that you like that person through verbal and non-verbal communication. I love complimenting people. Even if the other person doesn't like you, they will feel flattered that you complimented them in a way, Yeah. And so it is so important that you make sure you verbally communicate how you feel about them. If you like their hair, if you like the way they look today, if you think that they have beautiful eyes, or you think they're doing something nice for you, just make sure that they understand that you like them, that that's how you feel about them. Yeah. And also with your nonverbal communication, make sure that there are some people that are just, they don't like physical expressions of love. Yeah. And that's understandable.
Or they have like personal space stuff. Like, yeah.
So first of all, try to understand how the other person feels about nonverbal expressions of love.
No, definitely. No, I think you're making a really good point. Like, part of it is definitely being observant of the person that you're with. I mean, it's okay if you're definitely like a physical touch kind of person. It's okay, but maybe reserve yourself if the person you're with doesn't like that much. Or if you're the kind of person that really doesn't like physical touch, but you can tell that the person that you're with loves to cuddle, loves to hold hands, you know, give a little. There's got to be give and take, you know,
Yeah.
a light touch on the back, on the arm, or something like that, a hug, you know, things like that are totally okay. But like I said before, definitely be observant of those things, because for verbal and nonverbal communications and expressions of, you know, romance, or however you want to put that, are extremely important.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing too. I definitely want to mention this because Allie said something about this earlier, with the guy that paid for like $300 for a date. You know, you were straightforward with him after the date. I think that's something so important that I have literally, okay, I've been on a ridiculous amount of dates, and obviously none of them have worked out, right?
Yeah.
But I have never had a girl that I was on a date with just be honest about her feelings, like straightforward with me at the end of the date before I did that. And I learned that personally through experiences of people saying, like, you told me you were going to call me back, or you said you wanted a second date and you never went on one. I am extremely transparent now. I have absolutely no fear in telling someone that I have just been on a date with, I'm looking for a second date, or hey, I had fun, but I'm just not interested in pursuing this. I just don't think it can really go anywhere.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And tell them why. You know, don't just leave someone thinking, oh my gosh, well, did he not want to, you know, go on a second date because I'm not pretty enough?
Yeah.
Or because I'm not smart enough? Or was I not fun enough? No, tell them straight up. You know, like, if you have a problem with their career choice, that's okay. If you just don't feel attracted to that person, you can say that and have it not be negative.
Yeah.
You know, be very transparent at the end of your dates.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that's something that it's definitely missing right now. On our first date, we didn't say anything about second dates or anything, but the very next day I texted Lane and I said, hey, I loved going out with you. You're a great guy. I'll love to hang out again. And Lane actually mentioned that was, you know, a really good wake-up call to say, yeah, this girl is interested in me. Honestly, that was something that I also learned with experience. I went through so many dates where I just would not tell the guy I was interested in them, and they would think I was not. And I was heck interested in them, but I just didn't let them know I was interested. I didn't, you know, follow up with that first date. And, you know, people lose interest if you don't tell them how the relationship is going, or what's your point of view or your stand. Be honest with the person. If you are interested in going on a second date, then tell them. And if you're not, then tell them. Yeah. Don't just ghost them.
I think this contributes a lot to the podcast episode today. Would you mind telling us about that really bad date that you had with the girl in your class and how you dealt with interacting with that person after having a bad date? Because I think it's something a lot of people are afraid of. And you seem like you're still alive, so please tell us how you were able to survive that.
And was that your worst date, or did you have a worse experience than that?
I think that one for now is gonna top.
Made the top.
Experience.
Dang.
I mean, I've had some pretty horrible dates, but they weren't first dates. So this girl in my class, the whole semester we'd just been kind of like going back and forth. I felt like we had a really good repertoire together, you know, and we were decent friends, right? And so, you know, I'd done that classic guy thing where it's like you look for a ring, you drop subtle hints to see if they have a boyfriend, you know, you do all those things, and I was pretty certain she didn't have a boyfriend. So when I asked her out and she said yes, I was like, you know, way to go, let's do this. And I asked her out like on a Monday or Tuesday or something like that. We were gonna go out Friday. So Friday comes like an hour before the date, and she texts me and she's like, hey, I'm super excited for tonight. By the way, I should just let you know, I actually have a boyfriend up in, you know, up in the city, right?
What?
And turns out she's been dating this guy for like 6 or 7 years.
No way.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
So like I had absolutely no idea what to do, because like we're gonna technically go on this date right now.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, but like I still want to go with you though. Like I think we'd have a great time.
Was it like an open relationship kind of thing, or like what was it? Okay.
That's what I was so lost on. And then what made this date, well, I don't even know why I said yes, just still going on the date.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure if like you'd call it a date, but it was like, I mean, it was definitely a date. I don't know. I'm still lost on it. The whole time we just talked about her relationship with her boyfriend.
Oh.
So awkward. Felt way weird about it.
Yeah.
But in truth, like regardless of how awkward that situation was, we were still just friends in class. Like,
yeah.
I didn't treat her any different than I did before. I definitely felt
You're a great man.
At least you felt different. At least you were
respect you.
still like chasing after this girl who's been dating someone for 7 years.
Not. And that's where it was pretty weird for me, but at the same time, like, I get it. Like she was trying to be nice, and I was trying to be nice by not saying like, oh, screw that. Like let's not even bother.
Exactly.
You know, we could still be friends.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we still were. Like
Yeah.
I don't hang out with her now, but that's never really what our relationship was to begin with.
I mean, I think you said something key. Like, if you're interested in a coworker and you ask them out and they say no, they're still your coworker.
Yeah.
The professional thing to do is to not treat them different, because if you start treating them different, then it's going to be awkward, and they're going to think you hold a grudge, and it's just going to be bad and awkward, and work won't be good anymore. And it's the same with a friend. Like, if you ask somebody out, like a friend, and they say no or they say yes, like whether they say no or they say yes and it goes poorly, they're still your friend. Like, don't throw away your friendship because of that. Treat them the way that you did before, and try to control your feelings, try to move on. And I think that's the best way to handle that.
Oh, definitely. If you're going to say no to a date, by the way, like, be transparent about it. You know, if you're not up for a date because you would rather just stay friends, say that. If you would say that you don't want to cross that professional dating boundary, say it, you know, and be genuine in your answer.
What about you, Allie? What would you say your worst date has been?
I think my worst first date, I went on a date with this guy. He was super attractive. I could tell he was kind of a player. He liked to pull moves since the moment he met me. And on our first date, he started talking about non-appropriate sexual content. And it was just so awkward for me. I felt so embarrassed and awkward on that first date. I asked him to take me home. It was just so bad that I just said, you know, I think we were just gonna cut it short. And I think that is something that you gotta be aware of. You know, how the other person is feeling about your comments and the way you interact with them. You don't want to come across, you gotta watch how you come across. And that was my worst experience on the first date.
I think that you also mentioned something super key, which is, especially for girls, but for guys as well, if you don't feel comfortable and if you're not enjoying it and if you feel like you're in a bad situation, just end the date early. Like, find a way to get out of there.
We're just gonna put our phone down below here so you can just shoot us a text and we'll get you out of there. I'm kidding.
Yeah, the safety hotline.
The safety hotline. Actually, it's not a bad idea. Brandon, what is your first date? We went over the worst one. What was your good one?
So I think probably the best one I've ever been on was actually one of my simpler dates. It was a double date. Girl that I'd actually known in high school for a long time, but we just kind of like we never really connected that much in high school to be able to ask her on a date. We ended up finding each other on a dating app.
Wow.
And I just thought it would be like for grins and giggles, you know, like I swiped up.
Yeah.
And we matched and we started talking, and then through a mutual friend we kept things going and went on a double date with them. We got pizza and then we went to the dollar store.
Wow.
And kind of like the object of that last part was our couple friend. They just had this weird game where they would go to the dollar store and find the most interesting thing they could for $1.
Wow.
And when we literally spent like an hour in the dollar store, and we were just rolling. Like, we were making tons off of the things that we were finding and jokes and just having a good time. Like, it was really simple, but it just ended up being exactly what we wanted it to be. And by the end of the date, like, we hadn't been too physical. We ended up watching a movie towards the end, and yeah, we cuddled a little bit, but it wasn't anything like too crazy.
Yeah.
And then the end of the date, like, she was really open about how she felt about that date once I told her like I really enjoyed it, you know. And then we had like this hug, because I was kind of against kissing on first dates.
This hug, wow.
Right, yeah. I mean, to be totally honest, I think it went so well. Like, she even asked me like why later on why I didn't kiss her on, you know, after the first date. But we just had this hug that was like so electrifying. Like,
wow.
I've never felt a hug like that. To tell you the truth, I mean, I was head over heels for this girl. And unfortunately it didn't end up working out for, you know, a few different reasons, and that's totally fine. But that was easily my first date, as simple as it was. And even hearing the plan beforehand, I remember thinking like it didn't sound like that great of a date, but I'd roll with it. So glad I rolled with it.
I mean, this kind of circles back to what we talked about at the very beginning about having like a kind of like a checklist or a pre-flight, or just like a some things that you think about and some things that you take into consideration before a first date and in dating in general. I think that when you go on first dates, you look at the good ones and you look at the bad ones, and you have to tell yourself, like, what worked, like what did I do that was good, and what happened that made it a bad date, and you learn from your own experiences. But I think that's all that we have time for. Thank you so much again, Brandon, for joining us on the show. I think that we had some really good comments, and I appreciate you coming and joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been great to be here, actually.
Yeah, no problem. And all of you out there, thank you for listening, friend. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And be sure to join us on the next one. We're going to try to do these weekly. Be sure to follow our Instagram at The Nightings, and we will keep you posted on more episodes and more updates as we go. Thanks for joining us, and have a nice day.